Moving on, coming back to Asia, China and Pakistan will remain the Indian Army's main focus in 2018. This is what clearly the Army Chief of India said, General Bipin Rawat. He said so in his annual press conference ahead of the Army Day on January the 15th, but in the background of the Doklam standoff in August last year and the intrusion into Arunachal Pradesh just before the new year, he acknowledged the growing sensitivity of the northern borders. He said that the terrain in certain sections of the northern frontiers favoured India, but hinted also that in the event of a war, India will fight differently. Don't look at the 1962 war, he said. He indicated that cyber warfare was one area the army was studying very closely. While appreciating America's suspension of aid to Pakistan, he said it was premature to come to a judgment. He in fact warned that Washington cannot be expected to do India's work when it came to dealing with Pakistan-sponsored terrorism and infiltration. He spoke briefly about modernization in the context of Kashmir. General Rawat confirmed also that soldiers on the front lines would be the first to get new assault rifles being procured from foreign vendors under technology transfer. Unmanned aerial vehicles which help battalion commanders survey the terrain 3 to 4 kilometers ahead were being also acquired. Also, the helicopter fleet was being modernized beginning the next year. And joining us on this story, we have our senior editor, Surya Gangadharan. Surya, good evening to you and thank you very much for joining us tonight on the broadcast. So there is a lot of new equipment being purchased, helicopters, drones and new rifles. These, I imagine, is going to be a pretty expensive round of purchase. Any idea on the figures?
Well, that's a bit of a secret right now. But I think the whole exercise is also intended to ensure that a certain amount of this equipment is procured locally. The UAEs, for instance, there are a lot of small companies in India, mid-sized companies in Bangalore and other places that have developed UAVs of various kinds. So there is an exercise underway to ensure, to see which kind of UAV would be most suitable for use by the army, and then that brings down the price. Of course, more high-tech stuff like helicopters, for instance, that will have to be procured from overseas, depending on the niche requirements of the army.
And also, Surya, there is a bit of a, I wouldn't call it a change of strategy, but the fact that General Rawat focused a little bit more on China this year speaks volume about the relation between India and China at this point of time, isn't it?
I think that's been evident for quite some time, that as Pakistan's own internal issues render it less and less of a military challenge in that sense, China's profile is rising, and we've seen it in the constant attempts at incursions and transgressions that are happening on the border. We had the standoff in Doklam, we had the threats and intimidation that is constantly coming out, and of course the fact that China's military prowess right now is pretty much much higher than India's on any scale. And this asymmetry is something which worries the Indian establishment deeply.
In the event, I know you don't obviously have an overall knowledge of the entire positions of the army, that's kept also secret, a part of that, but in case of a conflict between India and China, where are we at in terms of technology? Which of the two armies ahead?
I think China's technological modernization of the army is something which is underway. It's something that will take many more years to complete. And in that sense, as far as basic equipment goes, we are perhaps roughly the same, although their numbers are far higher. They have more troops, they have more tanks, they have more artillery, they have more aircraft, they have more ships, obviously. So that's where the problem is, the fact that they have far greater numbers. And in that sense, even if militarily they have not fought a conflict since 1974, those sheer numbers are very daunting as far as India is concerned.